Thank you so much. My name is Mark Dowling. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here with the Inland Valleys Association of Realtors, or IVAR. And it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. Randall Lewis. Randall Lewis is with 45 years with in the real estate industry. He is the Executive Vice President and also Principal with Lewis Management Corporation, which is a member of the Lewis Group of Companies. Randall oversees, excuse me, all marketing activities in the region and in other states as well. His broad area of expertise includes land acquisition, marketing, market research, product design, and sales. The Lewis Group of Companies is one of the most active real estate developers in California and Nevada. They have significant master plan communities as well as many shopping centers, apartments, and industrial projects throughout the region. The Lewis Group owns over 10,000 apartments, controls land over 30,000 future homes and apartments, as well as owning and managing 30 shopping malls. And if anybody who's lived in the Inland Empire for any significant amount of time, you will know the name, the Lewis family, the Lewis Operating Company, the Lewis Group of Companies, however you want to term it. And Randall Lewis is one of the iconic developers and leaders along with his family, and it is a great opportunity, and I welcome him to IVAR today. Hello, Randall.
Good. And Mark, first, thank you for letting me have this opportunity. And thanks to all the IVAR members. You play such an important role in our economy and such an important role for our company and our family. So thanks for being here and thanks for all you guys do.
Great, thank you. So maybe take a minute and give a little background history on your family. Your family truly is an iconic family relative to the Inland Empire, going back decades. Maybe kind of give a quick history and kind of bring us up to date to maybe where you are now.
Sure. My parents had an accounting practice in Los Angeles, and they moved out here in the mid-1950s. We've been here for a long, long time. They decided to start a home building company. Some of their early clients were home builders, and they said, if those people could do it, we can probably do it. So they came to Claremont, and we grew as a family business. We were a small home builder starting in Claremont and Pomona, and then over the years, we gradually expanded. We went to Las Vegas in 1962. We went to Reno and Sacramento in the early 1970s. And so we grew to become a very large home building company known as Lewis Homes. We sold that part of the business in 1999, so we don't build houses anymore. Those people still call us Lewis Homes. What we call ourselves now is the Lewis Group of Companies because we have a lot of different companies. So the main things we operate in are primarily in real estate. That's our bread and butter. That's what we do every day. We've got a group called Lewis Plan Communities, and we do large-scale master plan communities throughout California and Nevada, but the biggest are in our Southern California division. So we've got big projects in Chino and Ontario, in Rancho Cucamonga, in Fontana, in Rialto, and we're looking and doing more in the east. We've got some stuff in Riverside County that we hope can get going soon. And on those, we buy land, we go through an entitlement process, we put in infrastructure, we try to create a great vision, and then we'll end up selling the home building land to what we call guest home builders. If there's an apartment, we'll build it. If there's a shopping center, we'll build it. If there's an industrial building, we would build it. So that's a big part of our business. Second part of our business is we get involved in the apartment business. And right now we're over 10,000 apartments that we own ourselves as a family and as a company. And we're probably closer to 11,000. And so we build apartments for the long run. We own probably 95% of the apartments we've ever built. So we've sold a couple over the years, but generally we build for long-term investments for the company and for the family. Most of those are apartments in Southern California are in the West End. So we have apartments in Rancho Cucamonga, in Chino, in Ontario. We've got some in Rialto. And it's a big part of our business. And as part of that, we've got a property management group. Our company has over 700 employees now, and a good number of them are in property management, leasing managers and groundskeepers and community directors. And it's a real important business for us because we like managing what we own. We don't give it to third parties. Another part of our business is we do shopping centers, and we own a little bit over 30 shopping centers. The numbers change, and we typically build our shopping centers to hold for the long run, but we probably have sold 5 of them or 7 of them, I think, over the years. I would guess that we'll build 10 new shopping centers over the next 5 years. That's an industry that's going through a lot of changes. But typically we keep most of the shopping centers we build, and a lot of it just is depending on changes in the industry. We've gotten very involved in the industrial sector. We've got a large industrial project that we're finishing in Rialto, a very large project in both in Rialto and in Riverside County at March Field. We've got partners on those, but industrial's turned into a big part of our business also. So it's a fun company right now. There's a lot happening. I get involved in a lot of the planning issues, the marketing issues, the strategic issues. I get the pleasure of doing interviews like this, which is a lot of fun for me. So I'm glad you invited me. So my role is a lot of the softer stuff. I don't get involved in the legal issues or the accounting issues or the engineering issues. Spend a lot of time on market research, a lot of time with the customers, a lot of time with the policymakers in the region. So I get involved in things I enjoy doing, and that's I go to work every day with a smile because I like what I get to do.
That's great. So out of all your portfolio of projects, what percentage of them do you think are in the Inland Empire, Riverside and San Bernardino counties?
I would guess that the assets we own, it's well over 60%. Not sure the total numbers. I mean, we've got a division in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
We've got big communities in a city called Lincoln, a city called Fairfield. We're working on one county of Sacramento. We own probably 1,000-ish apartments up there. And then I have a brother, Robert Lewis, who's lived in Nevada since the late 70s, and he's got 2 vibrant divisions in Las Vegas and in Reno. So I would guess we're 60%, maybe 65%. So it's a big part of our company, but we very much appreciate the work we do in Sacramento, Reno, and Las Vegas also.
Great. So the one specific project I am curious about is the project you're building out right now in Rancho Cucamonga, the former golf course.
Yes.
Can you take maybe a minute or two and kind of walk people through where you are in that process? I had the opportunity when I was living in Rancho Cucamonga to go to the Planning Commission meeting and speak on behalf of the project. I was a citizen there. I love that project. And every so often I'll drive by and kind of check out the progress on it. It looks fantastic, but it has a lot of unique features. Maybe you can kind of walk through what those features are and how it's unique.
It used to be called the Empire Lakes Golf Course, and it's a tough business right now. But and we own the Sierra Lakes Golf Course, and we're committed to Sierra Lakes. We're not selling it or closing it or anything. But golf is a tough business for a lot of companies. And so the owner of that property made a decision to sell. We worked with the city and got the sense from the city they would like to see something used for it because that particular golf course wasn't contributing a lot to the city other than for some recreation, but in terms of sales tax or property tax or other things. So Empire Lakes, we went through an entitlement process and came up with a vision that we called the resort. And the thought there was to try to do something very different in Rancho Cucamonga. And working, and a lot of the ideas for this came from the city manager, John Gillison of Rancho Cucamonga, a lot from the staff, a lot from the city council, a lot from the planning commission, where they said, do something different, give some alternatives. And they used the word transformative, and it really guided us, some of the sort of the challenge from the city. And they said, Victoria Gardens, which we were lucky enough to be a part of, was really transformative for the northern part of the city. And the city here challenged us to say, do something as transformative. So we said, how do we create something that's very different from what's in Rancho and really what's very different from the rest of the Inland Empire?
Right.
It's got very contemporary architecture. And what we found, some people love it, some people don't love it quite as much, but there are enough people that like it a lot. So it's very fresh architecture. There are 2 parts on the east side of the main street. We've got 5 guest builders. Van Dale is doing 3 projects. A company called New Home is doing 1, and a company called TriPoint. And it's a more dense community. It's got lower price points. We put in a fantastic club called the Club on 6th. And so the thought is for people that said, hey, maybe I don't need a big lot. Maybe I'm going through a transition. Maybe I want to get my first home or my second home. And we've got some move down product. And so far, pre-COVID, we had a very good response. COVID, of course, has slowed us down a bit, but sales have been picking up, and the last couple of months have been very strong. And what we're seeing is people that are saying, you know, the typical in Rancho and a lot of the Inland Empire, the thought is, oh, people need a 7,200-foot lot or a bigger lot and a swimming pool. But as we've seen from our research, that's important for part of the market, but there's a lot of the market that says, I don't need that. I want maybe more square footage or higher design or a lower sales price. So most of the prices there in the 300,000s up to the mid to high 500,000s, which for Rancho Cucamonga is a very attractive sales price. We also are going to be breaking ground next year on a big apartment community there. And it's going to be called Homecoming at the Resort. And we've built a number of communities called Homecoming where we put in very large clubhouses, have different types of product lines, and we'll have some floor plans we've never built there before. I'm very excited about Homecoming because it'll be a very different rental community for the Inland Empire. Contemporary architecture, a brand new clubhouse that's going to have some really wow features, some wow features in the landscaping. And we think for singles, for couples, for move downs, it's going to be a great community. So we're also going to have a little bit of office and a little bit of retail, but Empire Lakes is primarily going to be the resort, a residential community for the most part.
Right. So before I ask maybe about some of the residential elements on the home side, maybe apartments, let me ask a question on that. Oftentimes building apartments is controversial in cities. Cities oftentimes view higher density projects and rental projects as the green light for potential degradation of the community. There's a fixation on single family detached product, big homes, big lots, and maintaining that as best they can. However, you've been able to build beautiful projects. I've had the opportunity to tour several of them, and they're fantastic. And maybe you can kind of explain how it is you're able to position your projects to get approval and to get community buy-in on them, because they're very unique projects in the way you're able to put them together.
Yes. Well, part goes back to when we sold our home building company in 1999, and we still had an apartment group. We had a shopping center group, and we said, well, what are we going to do to go forward? And we had done a few apartments before then, but it wasn't a big part of our community and our business. And so as we studied the market, we saw that there are just some people that are in the market to rent. As a home builder, we always wanted to get everyone we could, but we knew there are a lot of people, and it could be people moving out of their home for the first time. It could be people that are going through transitions. We get a lot of relocations. It could be people who wanted a second home. We get a lot of doctors and medical people that rent because they said, I might work at Loma Linda, I might work at Arrowhead or Kaiser. And they say, I'll keep my primary home in LA or Big Bear or Lake Arrowhead or Newport Beach, but I want to rent while I'm here. And so just we see there's a strong part of the market that just wants to rent. We know that the apartment market's got some great competitors, and we said, let's try to do different. Let's try to create some different opportunities. So our typical apartments, and we've got a lot of different product types, but generally they're more upscale, even if it's one bedrooms or if it's studio units. We do a lot of larger apartments. We've got some projects with 3-bedroom apartments, with 4-bedroom apartments. We tend to put in larger clubhouses. We tend to spend a lot of money on lifestyle amenities. And really what we're selling is a place to live, but we're also selling a quality of life. And we have found the best sort of way to get projects entitled is to take people to our existing projects. And so when people see them, they almost always hear the same thing. Oh my gosh, I never knew this was an apartment, or this is like a resort. And so I can't say it's easy to get apartments to get approved in Southern California, but we've been pretty successful, especially when we can get planning commissioners or citizens just to our communities and see the quality of life that's there.
Right.
So we're excited about the apartment business, and I would hope IVAR members are excited because in a way, apartments are almost growing grounds for future home buyers. And
increasingly so, absolutely. And I mean, I was a renter for years, and I completely understand it. And I mean, the good news is that we have kind of baked within the culture of our country the idea of home ownership as being kind of that entryway into the middle class. But that doesn't always work for everybody at certain parts of their lives, whether people are going through a divorce or a career transition or a move down for a period of time. We need to have a variety of housing within our community that meets all those needs depending on where people are.
Yeah, I mean, the American dream, people have said the American dream is to own a home. And I still believe the American dream, own a home, holds true for the big majority of our country. But it's, for a lot of them, it's not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. Or maybe I've held that American dream and now I want to downsize and I'm going to rent somewhere for a couple of years and then I'll decide where do I move or what kind of lifestyle. So we find in our surveys, I mean, the demand for apartments is probably as great as the demand for sale housing. And so it's sometimes you have to tell the policymakers, hey, which of you did not live in an apartment? And it's interesting when we do that, usually there's only one hand that doesn't go up, which is me. I've never lived in an apartment. I've always lived in or something else, but almost everyone who's on a city council or a planning commission, you say, who didn't live in an apartment? Almost all of them say yes. So it's a very viable alternative. And I think the key in cities, if they're worried about apartments, it's really management. It's enforcing traffic. It's enforcing parking. How do you deal with trash and stuff? So, and our region, the Ivar region, has some very good property management companies.
Absolutely. So on the issue of development and the challenges that are unique, not only to the Inland Empire, but California as a whole, I was a former planning commissioner for the county of San Bernardino for about 6 years. And development's difficult and it's timely and it's expensive and it's challenging at almost every single turn throughout the process. Most of the membership of Ivar don't work on the development side. They're more on the transactional, we'll say retail side with residential properties. But we are kind of connected to development, obviously, and we hear terms about CEQA and permitting and so forth. With that being said, do you have any suggestions from a policy standpoint that would kind of facilitate development and the process? One of the challenges, and you just said it, which is kind of the perception issues. And you said that what you were able to do is if you can get the planning commissioners or city council members or community leaders to view your projects and see them, it's just that much easier for them to understand the type of projects and quality in which you're proposing to be built in their cities. But short of maybe that easy tour, and short of any easy CEQA answers, do you have any suggestions on the development side?
That's a great question, and lots of ideas come to mind. First is a recognition that housing, what we do, what Ivar members do, it's a noble business. People need housing, and California has just a desperate need for more housing. So I think we all need to do a better job to say, this is important. People's lives are at stake. If they can't get safe housing, it's really a threat to their lives. So I think raise the awareness. I think a second, there are just a lot of barriers in California that are among the worst in the United States. We're told New Jersey's as tough, New York can be as tough, a couple others, but generally California is among the toughest states in the country. And it doesn't necessarily get a better product or better protection. It's just their processes are tough. I met with the planning and community development director yesterday, and we talked about this very subject. And one of those things he talked about was that we really need to work with our jurisdictions on just what's called process improvement. How do you get through the system quicker? And he had said, boy, if you could just figure that out, think how much more housing could be built faster. If we buy a new piece of land, if it's an easy piece of land, and I'm not sure there's anything easy anymore, but maybe you could get through the process in 12 months to 18 months. And there's a lot of expense to that. But it's not uncommon on new developments that could take, on a little more complicated project, it could take 2 years to 3 years. For large scale development in California, it would be unusual if someone could get entitled in less than 4 years, and often it could be 7 or 10 years. We have a project, Terra Vista in Rancho Cucamonga. That took almost 8 years from the time we bought it till we could break ground. We have a project called the Preserve in Chino. I think that took 4 years, and that was 15 years ago, and it still took 4 years. We have a couple other projects we've worked on for 7 or 8 or 10 years, and they're still not approved. So I think a recognition, boy, we need a better process to get through the system. I think there could be a recognition with the jurisdictions to look at some of the design standards. Again, this is where Ivar could help a great deal in your members. when you work with cities and sometimes their architectural commissions, they're always saying, we want more, more, more. And yet when we talk to some of the brokers and realtors we talk to, they say, you know what, people like nice houses, but they're not going to pay much if it's got brick on the back of the house or if it has stonework on the side of a house that nobody can see. So I think working with the experts to say, what are those elements that make good design that customers will pay for? And what are the elements that customers won't pay for? One of our guest builders gave an example to us last month where there were two houses where one had a really fantastic porch and wraparound treatments. And I think it cost over $20,000. And it was next door to a house next with the same floor plan without that. And he said, even if I could get a customer pay, I don't think I could get the appraisers to appraise it. And
Correct.
so what that means is by asking for so much, the builder's going to lose money on it because he can't get the appraisal for it. So I think working on design standards would help. Again, I think a role for IVAR members is to show up at meetings as you did for the resort in Empire Lakes. It really helps to give the electeds and the planning commissions cover, because whatever you do, if you want to do a new restaurant, if you want to do a new office park, people are going to come out and protest. It's just normal because change is hard and people say, my life is good the way it is. Why do I want more cars or anything else? And so when you get 6 people saying no, it's hard if you're an elected. But if you have 6 people in the audience saying, we need housing or we need restaurants or we need offices, I think it makes it easier for the electeds to make the right decision and not be worried about just the political backflow. I think one last thing, Mark, that we can do, the state has set up some very aggressive goals for housing production, but they haven't given the tools to the cities or to the development community to carry out those goals. So the state would like our region to do hundreds of thousands of houses in certain areas, and they want some to be affordable. It's great to say that, but it's going to backfire. And so I think we need to work with our legislators to say, if we want some of this housing production, don't have requirements that are unrealistic. And if you're going to need to say we want affordable housing, think of mechanisms to help pay for it.
I think those are all great suggestions, particularly the one on the architectural design and treatments. I mean, obviously, if a developer is being asked, and I've sat through these meetings where I've had design review committees and planning commissions and so forth, require concrete tile roofs when a 35-year shingle would have been, composite shingle would have worked, or block walls when a vinyl fencing would have worked. I mean, it becomes very difficult to build affordable housing if the development codes and standards of a city continually stack on requirements that may be nice, but they're not fundamentally essential or even necessarily improving the value of the house in a lot of ways. One issue, though, is the ability to build. Well, first of all, let me say this. Building, as you know, it's kind of a math equation. It's relative to your acquisition price of the land and then carrying costs and development costs. And then it also kind of comes out on the back end relative to the density of the product and the quality of the design of the project. And one of the challenges, though, is if you want to build more affordable homes, you need to increase the density, decrease the design standards a little, and also decrease the square footage of the homes and allow builders to build smaller homes. I was raised in a house that was about 1,400 square feet. It was, I had a sister and a mother and a father, and we lived very comfortably in a 1,400 square foot house. However, by today's standards, most cities don't like homes that small. In fact, I know some cities actually have a minimum of 2,000 square feet on some of their subdivisions if it's a 2-story house, for example. So how do we convince policymakers to address some zoning issues to allow for maybe 4,000 square foot lots with smaller homes with more relaxed standards? Because really that's about the only way you can begin to push the price down and allow more people to be homeowners.
Another excellent question. There are a number of ways we can do that. And again, I think IVAR and its membership could be a help. First would be an understanding of who are the home shoppers. And the thought is that in so many cases, well, you're providing houses for a mother and a father and 2, 3, or 4 kids. And yet when we look who shows up in our apartment communities and who shows up in our planned communities on the for sale projects, we're finding that families with children maybe is 50% of the marketplace. We get singles buying, we get couples buying, we get older families where the kids have moved away. Yet, I mean, it's rare we see a subdivision where there are more than 50% with families. And what that means is not everybody wants to maintain a big backyard. Not everybody wants to spend the weekends mowing the lawn or taking care of the yard itself. And so I think knowing the demographics is going to be key. I also think knowing just the economics, to say, as nice as it would be to say, let's have 2,000-foot houses on big lots, we've got an affordability crisis. And so we need to try to design for the pocketbooks to say, what can we design that people can afford? Just back on the design standards, I would not advocate for cheapening design standards. I would advocate for being smarter about design standards, putting
Yes.
in things that matter, putting in things that will last a long time. So your suggestions were good ideas, but I don't want any of the viewers to think we're saying cheapen them. Just let's get smarter about that. So
Exactly.
I think understanding who the demographics are, who's in the marketplace, and then understanding how to match the incomes and the purchasing power to the product would be very, very important.
Absolutely.
I think the last one that I know your members would understand, but I'm not sure a lot of the policymakers totally see it, is that capital in real estate is pretty mobile. And that means that capital, if you're an investor, whether someone trying to buy a home or a triplex or a national apartment developer saying, should I build in California or Arizona or Colorado? The money normally flows where there's a good opportunity. And that's one of the challenges we're seeing in California now. I'm active in a couple of national groups. And so when I talk to whether it's a national home builder, a national apartment developer, typically their process is they have a capital allocation committee. And it says, we're going to spend X dollars in the next 3 years on housing projects of any sort. Then they have to decide how much goes to Los Angeles or how much goes to Seattle or how much goes to Salt Lake City. And more, what we're hearing is some of those big companies are saying, I can go somewhere else and I can get a better return on my capital. And so they're just chasing where they can do what's best for their stakeholders so capital can flee. And I'm sure your members at IVAR hear the same thing, that someone says, well, do I want to buy that rental home here? Or maybe I'll do better going somewhere else. This comes up with the rent control issue, that there's some work now trying to get a proposition to make it easier to do rent control. I know so many apartment developers and investors that are saying, you know, if there's rent control, I'm just going to go invest in states where they don't have rent control. We need to do something about the housing crisis. We need to do something about rents and prices. I don't think rent control is the solution.
And I assure you our membership in CAR has taken formal positions as well. The rent control is not the solution for issues that we're dealing with here in the housing market. In addition to that, obviously, we have a split roll initiative that's coming up that's going to have obviously a direct impact on you and all of California if that passes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's good. That's a controversial one.
Yeah.
Because where will the money go and who will actually pay it? And there's some good arguments on both sides of it. But I think the one argument that I don't know that is accurate will just be the question about who will be paying it. Because if one of your members owns a shopping center or owns something and their taxes go up, I think they're going to be forced in many cases to raise their rent on other people. So the split roll, I think, will have some negatives on the economy of California.
I agree. I think exactly that's what would happen if it passes. So let me ask you, out of all the projects you've worked on over the years, and there's been many, do you have a favorite project or two? And if so, why would that be a favorite?
It's a cliche to say it, but it's always the next one, the one we're working on now to break ground down. And the reason, well, first, we take a lot of pleasure as a family and our employees in what we do and driving around. I walked through, and this was in Chino yesterday. We did a tour with some of the planning department, and they walked through some communities we built we were involved with 15 years ago and 10 years ago. And they're great communities. And all of us agreed. We said, boy, look at this now that it's grown up and we saw people walking their dogs and kids playing. We take a lot of pleasure going through our communities to say, hey, we did something good. We did something nice for the community. We get lots of thank you letters from people saying, thank you for this apartment. Thank you for this park. Thank you for this trail. That's really satisfying. So I would say almost all our projects, we get a lot of pleasure and favorites.
Great.
But for me, where I talked about the next project is our company's really focused on learning and constant improvement with almost like relentless pursuit of perfection. I think one of the car companies said. And so we're always going through our projects and competitors saying, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? How do we make the next one better? And so it's fun. That's the part of the business I get the most excited about, because we're always trying to say, what are the lessons we can learn? And then how do we apply them? So that's why the resort at Empire Lakes is so exciting. Some of the new stuff we're going to be doing in Chino or Fontana, because we're taking ideas from the last 3 or 4 years, listening to customers and applying them. We do a lot of focus groups. We stopped our focus groups, but where we get with our customers, whether home buying customers in our communities or renters, and we always ask them, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? Because the real experts are the people living in our houses. We get so many good ideas. Because of COVID, it's been hard to do these. So we're starting something that will happen 2 weeks from now. We're setting up listening sessions. I mean, a lot of our employees live in our apartments. So we've identified, I think, 3 groups of 8, and we're going to do listening sessions with our employees to say, you live in our apartments. Tell us, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? And there's always little stuff. As much as we try, as much as our architects try, or designers, you find out, it's a little tight in this kitchen, or I wish the pantry were a tiny bit bigger, or I wish the master bath had something different in it. That's a fun part of my business. You get the best report card comes from the customers, who almost always say, you guys did a really excellent job, but there's a couple of things you should have done differently. And that's why I get so excited about the next project.
That's great. So you've been with your family in the Inland Empire for decades. As I introduced you, I said 45 years, and you talked about that. You've seen the Inland Empire grow up in a lot of ways, particularly in relationship to LA and Orange County, and kind of our juxtaposition next to those booming counties and population bases. So if you're going to read your crystal ball here, how do you see the Inland Empire growing in the next 5, 10, 20 years? You've seen this charted, you've seen the last several decades, but where do you see the future in this region?
Future's so exciting here. And I'm excited. I have 3 children and they're all in the business, and my brothers have family in the business too. We hope we're an evergreen company, and then the future's bright, and it's especially bright in the Inland Empire. I mean, for decades, especially when my parents came out here in the 50s and the early 60s, it was a sleepy area. Right now, this is one of the hottest areas in the United States, certainly for industrial development, which brings a lot of jobs and companies with it. But for residential too, we're in the heart of the best market almost in California. That in itself is exciting. The other thing that I think is exciting for the future is the maturation of this market. That we're getting a chance to do some different kinds of products, some upscale product for people who have a lot of equity, some starter product, but how to solve the affordability in different ways, and some new products that will try to address the needs of our customers in different ways. I think one of the things, as an example, that excites me is the marriage now between architecture and land planning and landscape architects. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about 4,000 foot lots might be good. But we've been involved in a number of communities where we're doing things on lots that are 2,500 and 2,000 feet. And yet when you walk through them, they feel good. People get a little porch, people have a little bit of grass or turf, but they get to own their own detached house. I think some of the biggest changes your members are going to see going forward will be new advances in what kinds of houses get built. And it will be some that would maybe 10 to an acre or even 15 to an acre detached houses that will be good alternatives to attached townhouses. There's going to be a lot of townhouses being built, so I'm not going to say they're not going to come, but I think your members are going to see some very exciting new cluster housing, that'll be very popular and will make good resales 5 years after they're sold.
I agree. And as far as we're concerned, we need housing opportunities that are provided up and down the market. It can't just be for people that are coming in at the $500,000 or $600,000 range. We're looking for move up buyers, move down buyers, and having that product available, particularly if it's detached and you can own it, is just that much easier to sell and much more marketable as well.
There's also going to be changes with the aging of the population. As you can look at my hair, and unfortunately your beard,
I'm right there.
There's a lot of graybeards here, and we're
Yeah.
turning 60 or 65 or 75. But it's a different kind of housing that we're going to be demanding. It's not the retirement home. And so we're spending a lot of time talking to people, again, in those age groups to say, what is it you want? And we're hearing lifestyle is going to be important. I think lack of maintenance is going to be very important. Security is going to be important. I mean, the housing that you're going to move into, Mark, 5 years from now, I'm working on designing it now. I just don't know what it is. But that's exciting to say, what can I do? So you're going to say, God, the Lewises or their competitors, they really thought about me and created something that I want. That
I'll be
gets
sure
me
to make it a single story. My knees are starting to bother me.
Yeah. Well, people talk about single story. A lot of times single story is an answer. Sometimes it could just be a master bedroom downstairs and a living room downstairs. And sometimes it can be single level living. So at Empire Lakes, Van Dale has a project, the resort has a project where it's 3-story living with an elevator. And they've had a very good response to it. And so we're looking, so single level is good, but it doesn't always have to be 100% single level. We found, and again, for you, you might want a single level house, but still has a couple guest bedrooms upstairs. So.
Fantastic. Well, Randall, I want to thank you for your time, your insight, your perspective, and I also want to thank you for your commitment to our communities. It's rare when I'm not out there in the community attending meetings and regarding the leadership and so forth, when I don't see you or some representative from your company. You guys have done an amazing job. You're vested here, you're leaders, and you do whatever you can to make this a better place for everybody to live. And I want to thank you for that, and your family as well.
You know, something my parents taught us, it was just ingrained, and I hope I'm teaching my kids and the other people who work for the company. My dad used to say, if you work in a community and you prosper in a community, you've got an obligation to give back to the community. And so I spent a lot of my life trying to think, how do we make the Inland Empire a better place? And it's something out of sort of a moral responsibility we should do it. But I think it makes good business sense also. We hope we have investments here in business here for the next 50 years. So the more we can build a better Inland Empire, the better our economy is going to thrive, the better our schools, the better the health. We try to work on all of those to give back, but also we like working in a thriving economy, which we are. And I'm very excited about the future of the Inland Empire.
I couldn't agree more. And again, I want to thank you for your time today and for your perspective. And with that, I will conclude our interview and thank you.